Hello, 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 people of the internet. Ian Altazar, the Freedom Astrologer here, and I'm sitting here with two of my almost favorite people. Let's say we've been spending so much time and getting to know each other, and the relationships have been growing. Joe and Cindy have been on my channel, one on one with me before, and now they're here together. And
Yeah.
I'll give the mic over to them, and they will introduce themselves and say a couple of words. What do you guys do?
Hey, I'm Cindy. I'm an intuitive support alongside with Joe. I do my own sessions of intuitive readings, you could say. I just call them plugging in. It's what I've learned from being partners with Joe as Joe does his spiritual work. And so we work with our business is Foxdreamer, and that's Joe.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joe Greenland. I'm native. A lot of people call me shaman, medicine man in the native culture. Through our business, I use the name Foxdreamer because that was a name given to me by an elder years ago, and the spirits told him to call me that. And in his language, he said Shoni humbly, and it translates into Foxdreamer. And that's a name I use in ceremony and that, and it felt right to use it for my business. That's why we call it Foxdreamer. And the spirits, when I use my name in that, it's like we have our human name, like I'm known as Joe Greenland, but in the native, I'm known as Shoni Humbly, and that's Foxdreamer. I do clearings, energy clearings. I channel messages. I share knowledge from the native ways. I use the smudge, the eagle feather. I call in the spirits. I usually call in grandmothers, grandfathers. I connect with the earth. I always bring in the creator. First thing always is the creator, then connect all the others and open up space for people. I always pray whoever's a part of this receives their answers and different things. And I thank Ian for doing this because I believe through what we're doing, there's many spirits on that work and are there when a person is seeking it, it will come through. So through the native stuff, through books and knowledge, I share a lot of stuff, and I'm always trying to help people. So the clearings basically is removing old energy and trying to find a way to bring in the new or give you answers to change the way you think so you can attract new things.
I have a question. How I know we use the word spirits, but there's so many different levels and dimensions of spirits. When we refer to spirits, how would you explain that? Because I know you can explain it in a really big way.
Spirits. I mean, people want to class them as angels. Every culture has their own form of deity or teacher or guardian. Natives, we just say grandmothers and grandfathers, something very ancient, very loving that comes from the universe that is only looking for something to help you to have a higher, better connection. So when you're asking, because most people will get really scared and then they start praying, and after they're not afraid, they stop again. And people don't realize that that's really important. They're always around us right from the day we're born. So really recognizing, feeling their energies. Sometimes you'll see orbs or you'll see different kind of apparitions and energies that they have different ways of verifying who and what they are. But
I've heard you refer to orbs as the round balls of light that a lot of people will see or capture on their camera. Yep. And those are usually like angels or loving beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the natives, we even have animal spirits. And I always say the animals are disguised angels in animal form, and they're connecting to you because the animals, they all have their own knowledge. They're all connected to the earth. They all do different things. So somehow you're connected to animals. In the medicine wheel, they say there's 4 different animals. One is at each door. So in the north, it'd be a white, in the east, red, south, yellow, west blue or black, and depends the teachings and that. And so you have these animals that are also angelic beings that work with you. So I think all cultures in the past all over the planet had this connection to the earth, to the animals, and realize we're always connected as one in harmony.
So angels in disguise.
That's the way I say when we have our animal spirits. It's like when I do things, I will ask the bear to help. And so the bear spirit will come in. So it's like an angelic being taking on the shape of a bear, and somehow it's helping me. Other people, some people have horse, or I know a guy who has a cricket. And so lots of people have different things depending on your own belief systems.
Mhm.
What about the mischievous ones? That's another term. I like the term mischievous ones as like a grouping for another level of energy spirits. Ian, do you have an experience?
I do have one, let's say, a story from my childhood, which was kind of I do tie it to a bit of a mischievous energy, because it was the history of the building was very. I learned it after we already moved away from that space. But how it really began was I was home alone. I was about 10 years old, maybe 9, 10, somewhere around that age. And I started again, I woke up from a sleep, and it was really strange because I saw magazines flying around me. At that, I was like alone, and it really freaked me out at first. I was like, okay, just calm down. I felt like a very, almost like a coldish feeling, on my skin, and it was I really froze in the moment as well. But I kind of got through that, and time went on. The same day, later on, and suddenly all the cupboards in the same room. I think it. I can't remember exactly the time frame, but it was like pretty close, maybe like hour, 2 hours, somewhere around that range. And all the cupboards in that room where I was started shaking. And I was like, oh my God, I was totally frozen in that, moment. But again, it stopped. And the last thing I remember was I looked at the hallway, and in the hallway was this shape, what I can only describe, seemed like a little bit of a humanish form. And it was moving towards, my room, and my parents' room was at the end of the hall, and I was in the living room, and this like you know that human or form was moving really quickly, and I could see, on the floor how it was moving, and it was moving towards that, and that by that moment I was like, like I was totally frozen. And later on, I figured out, or not, I didn't even figure out. Luckily, my kind of one side, or my father is a bit connected to those realms as well, and he kind of believed, me and my let's say stories in that moment. But a lot of people who I shared this with, as a 10-year-old, they didn't really believe, and it's like, oh, you're crazy, stuff like that. And we ended up actually moving away from that place. And later on, I realized that one of the people actually living there during that time that we were living there was one of the people. I want to be I'm kind of iffy with the exact facts, but I think he was working for the Russian KGB. During the Soviet Union, people were basically forced to move to Siberia from Estonia. So they were forcefully, the people who had more money and who were smarter, we call it küüditamine, but it was kind of like a forceful relocating of humans from Estonia to Siberia. So that person who rented the place to us and had connections to that building where we were living had, most likely done some iffy stuff during that time, and other things have happened probably in that house that I then tied to that kind of spirit that was mm, maybe not so pleasantly amused by my or our family's presence there. So for me, that was kind of like my very, very specific experience with, you know, this mischievous ghosts or spirits, entities. Maybe you guys have some guidance with that story, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like to think that we all have a story or we all have an experience of paranormal, or because our imagination loves it as well, right? You know, it is the feeling and the experience of it. But yeah, you're right, where people will call you crazy and say, like, you know, you heard nothing.
Yeah.
I had an experience once when I was around 21, and I had a knee injury and I was on crutches and I lived in my sister's basement, and I had to go down like 13 stairs to get in the basement. And so on crutches, it was really hard. And I went out for the night and I came back, you know, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning when I went to sleep. And I was wearing my flannel pajamas with stars and moons on it. I'm like 21. And my sister and her family were out of town. And I lay down in bed, and all of a sudden I could hear footsteps. And it's like heavy footsteps walking down the hall, into the living room, into the kitchen. And I got scared. Like, I'm home all alone. I'm injured. I'm on crutches, and I'm in the basement, and there's no door for me to go outside. Like, I have to go back upstairs into the main living area. And so what do you do? You call the police. So that's what I did. And in that small town, the police were just like, there's an home invader there. So every police officer that was on duty at 3 a.m. all rushed to my house, surround the house with reds and blues flashing. And they come to my little window. It's like a little basement window. And I see these two cops' heads in the window. I'm standing on my bed. And they're like, all the doors are locked. And I was like, I don't think there's anybody in the house, because after I had called the police, the footsteps had stopped. And then this cop's like, I'm going in. And so he dives in head first through the little window onto my bed. I'm standing there with my crutches, pulls out his gun, and he like goes down the hallway, because it was really dark in there. Anyways, I hear him unlock the door, and all these footsteps. The cops just came in and ransacked the whole house, and there was nobody there. And in the morning, the neighbors thought there was a huge drug bust at the house, and the neighbors had all kinds of stories saying that it was a drug bust, but really it was ghost. That we then started sharing our stories and found out that there was a suicide at the house, maybe about 15 years beforehand, that we were unaware of until that time. Yeah, and so it also helped me to piece together some other things that happened. But yeah, that's like a story. But what do you do with that energy too? Like, sometimes, you know, our curiosity wants to ask it questions. Should we ask it questions? What do we do?
Do you call the police, or do you call you guys? Like, you can, you know, Joe can communicate, you can clear things around there, I can imagine.
Well, I've been doing that for quite a few years. I go to people's houses and I try to release things or find out why things are not working or whatever is, you know, maybe affecting the people. So that's something I do. All my life I've been aware of energy, and the story that I'm going to talk about is I was a little boy back home in the Arctic with my granddad's. And it was a winter, and it was this wind just howling and howling, and it was just snow and everything blowing, and the whole house is rattling and shaking. We had thick plastic over the windows trying to keep the heat into the building, and a lot of snow on top of the roof and things. And I was laying there, and my granddad's like, go to sleep. And so I was laying there, and all of a sudden there's this really weird scratching started on my window. And my mind started racing. I'm like, oh, something scratching gonna come through, or maybe it's the boogeyman. He's gonna come and steal me. And my mind's just going crazy. And I'm trying to hide under the blanket, and the scratching is getting more and more noisier. as this sound is going on. And finally I run out of the bedroom and my granddad's like, what's going on? And I'm like, there's something scratching on the window trying to get in. And he's like, you go out there and you take a look. And I'm like this little kid. I'm like, I don't know, about 8, 9, maybe 10 years old. And I'm looking at him like he's freaking crazy. And, you know, the sound going on. He's like, oh, you go down, you go out there and you take a look. So I put on my parky and my boots and I'm standing there and I'm still looking at him like, are you really serious? You sent me out into this dark night with this wind and everything and something there at my window. So I finally go out and I stand by the door for a minute and I think I'm going to fool him. And he's like, no, because he's going to want to know. So I go down the stairs and I slowly go to the corner. Around the corner is my bedroom and the window. And I get to the corner and I can hear the scratching going. And it's getting louder and I'm standing there and I'm just shaking. And finally I'm like, whatever, you know, if it's going to steal me or take me or whatever, I'm just going to look. And I stick my head around the window and the plastic had broken and it looked like little claws and the wind was moving the plastic up and down like this. And it was like when you scratch a chalkboard in the school, it's got that really high pitched noise. And that's what it was. And I'm like, oh, and I'm standing there and I'm still trembling and still like scared. And I went inside and my granddad's like, so what was it? And I explained to him it was the polythene. And so he helped me to realize that try to figure these things out instead of getting scared and running. So in the natives, we call spirits that do things mischievous, because mischievous is like a little child playing and they're doing things. And sometimes they'll throw stuff or have tantrums or they'll scream and yell and do things. So we call them mischievous ones. So sometimes a spirit will appear and sometimes intentionally try to scare you. But there's other spirits trying to appear, trying to see if you can see them, or if there's a message or some way you might have an answer to help them. So sometimes they're stuck. When they passed on the other side, they didn't realize they could cross into the light and they were afraid and they got sort of stuck. So they're searching for somebody with answers, and people give off a light. They give off an energy. And in the spirit world, they see us as like bright lights, which some of us have very, very, very bright. Others have lower lights, and they're always going around trying to find a way to get help. Then there's other spirits that come from other places. They get in here and sometimes they get stuck here and they get angry and they start doing stuff. So you start asking them questions instead of just freaking out and attacking them and going, well, I'm going to get holy water and a cross and I'm just going to start smacking you around and you know, send you to hell or whatever. It's like, instead, I always say when I'm going to go and deal with the spirit is I'm going to go there and talk with them. I'm going to go there and I want to understand why it's there and why is all this going on, and find a way to release it. Because if I go there with the intentions to fight with it, it's going to want to fight with it. And not every spirit is negative. So it may be a really, really beautiful spirit and the person is just creating all the fears around it. And it may even actually be a loving relative wanting to give you information because they're trying to show you your third eye is open and you can hear them and see them. So there's many, many reasons why this goes on. Instead of just freaking out, it's like start finding answers, find a way to deal with it, instead of just using superstition and getting scared, because in every culture there's superstition. But if you're looking for the truth, you're going to find an answer and a way to deal with it. There's always somebody somewhere that can help in some way.
So basically, as I understand it, the message of this is not to be, too crazy, not to start fighting with them, not to get too scared. Just be open and, do your best to communicate with them. And then if that, fails, call you. You can be the bridge a little bit.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's, immediately super open and can, connect with them maybe so, easily, let's say.
And being patient too. It's like, okay, it's there. Now, is there people around in the community? Is there somebody? Is there a witch or a preacher or somebody who practices shamanism or who is working in the paranormal or spirit world, and there's many people out there, and it's just wanting to find them and connect with them.
The ones that can help you. Being
Exactly.
very clear on that request. If you're asking of the universe, is there someone around me that can help me understand and deal with this energy that's in my home or that I'm experiencing?
Because the universe always gives you what they believe you can handle. So when you have this experience, they feel you're ready to learn this and find a way to deal with it or grow with that knowledge, or it's going to connect you with somebody or a group of people. So it's going to take you on a journey. And all these different experiences, they always do that. They're door openers. But a lot of people get afraid, and they will hide. Like some people will go to a church and they'll stay in the church because it's hiding and they feel safe, that they're protected. But the universe is allowing this for a reason. And it's like, you asked for something, you prayed for something, you attracted it. Now, do you want to learn and grow, or do you want to be afraid? Mm-hmm. And like I say, it's really taking that time to think and not just let your mind spin and sort of go off in all kinds of directions. That was part of my granddad. Anytime I had a fear towards something, he'd find a way to get me to investigate, think, learn, look at it. And I keep going back to him until I understood. And you just learn, you get confidence. And the more you read about angelic beings and avatars and teachers and masters and all kinds of different spirits, they will find many ways to give you answers. They're always protecting you when you ask them to surround you with their protection, because you're still not knowing how to deal with this, and what is it going to help you to release it or bring it through, or whatever needs to go on in the whole experience.
From your experience, but also that I've heard you teach to others, Joe, is gaining knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the less fear you have, because you'll understand what to do with it. You'll know how to let that energy flow through you versus storing it inside with fear.
Yeah, and getting past the idea of woo-woo.
Or judgments.
Yeah, because the spirit world is real. The other side is real. From many experiences I've had, and ceremonies, and a lot of people I know have crossed over, and all kinds of things. It is real, and the universe has taught me that. And like I say, if you're really, really wanting to know, having knowledge helps you to not be afraid. It helps you to ground and really deal with the situation. And it is your space. God gave you that space. It's a sacred space. So if something is in there and it's not really of the highest good, then what is it that needs to do to balance and correct it back out, or help you to find a means to release it? So understanding those things and knowing that you do have guardian spirits around you that really work for you, and communicating, being open to it, not fearing what it is or being, well, that's all woo-woo and that. Because you get challenged to your belief system. If you're really believing something or you're in denial, somehow the universe will sometimes present something to show you there's an opposite to what you think and believe. I think your experience, Ian, when you were a child was a spirit coming through, and it wanted to communicate and was showing you things, and it was trying to help you to understand that maybe you were open to a lot more bigger things, but you didn't really understand it, and you closed it off for quite a while. But still your other senses and that were heightened, because whenever you have these experiences, there's an energy that opens you up, and you can go back into that and you can learn about it. That's what shamans and there's many names all around the world for spiritual people, and they go into that and they communicate with the spirits. If it's a Mongolian shaman, he'll do anything to go in the spirit world and look at everything and communicate and see the spirits. And this is what they end up doing. This is what the teachings and learnings will bring you to a point where you will do that for other people, because you have that knowledge and someone is trusting you. So they're opening a doorway, believing that somehow you're going to bring that through. And once that happens, lots of times it leads them down that path, and then they want to do it to help others.
Do you guys, I have a bit of a question, and I have my side of the story or my side of the coin as well. Do you have a suggestion for people, let's say, to differentiate between kind of like the mischievous, maybe more, and maybe those who have, maybe they're your ancestors who are coming in to help you or guide you, maybe main guides or whatever. Do you have like a maybe it's a feeling thing, or some people see even things. Do you have a maybe your side of the story? How can you differentiate these things?
For most people that don't really understand, it is a feeling, because you're going to either feel something really good or you're going to feel something that's not good. And inside you, you're going to feel threatened if it is a bad thing. So that is one of the biggest things, is a lot of people have their third eye closed because they're really afraid to see into the spirit world, because the world conditioning is, we're taught not to see or think or look at that sort of stuff. And a lot of people have grown up in Christianity, so it's like you believe everything is there, but you're not meant to see it. So a lot of people will keep their third eyes closed. When they were children, they may have saw spirits under their bed or in their closet and that, and they just shut it off, and they just choose not to. So you have to learn how to feel, because with shamanism, with anything, the feelings are really important, because they warn you, they teach you things, where you can go in, where you're safe, where you're not, and where you need a lot more protection and help, or you need to get together with other people to do some kind of energy work. But feelings are one of the biggest things, so you're not crossing into a boundary that you're not safe in.
And I would suggest to start figuring out your questions if you've had experiences before, like an oppressive energy on your chest or being pinned down or something like that. It's like, if this was to ever happen to me again, what would I ask for? Like, because you got your ability to ask the universe for help, and help me to understand when I get really cold, if that is an angel or my ancestor, to help me to understand if it is or if it isn't. You can ask, kind of get your questions pre-ready so that your go-to question is like, help me to understand this. What is this feeling? And how does it shift? How does it change? Am I supposed to do something?
Not being ashamed and really opening up and asking, because there's no such thing as a stupid question. And that usually stops people from searching and looking out and going to people, because they feel they're going to be ashamed because they don't have the knowledge, or somebody's going to talk in a language they don't fully understand. And it's like, ask that question, be open to really stepping out into the unknown every now and then, and just be willing to hear or accept whatever they're trying to help you with. Because there's fears and shame wrapped around everything, and guilt and other kinds of things. And lots of people, if they don't know how to deal with things, sometimes they'd rather run away than actually face it.
I think that's really big key as well, what you said, like running away and the feeling of the fear and the feeling of the feelings. Because I'll share a quick, my personal experience. A lot of my communications are very often in dream time. Although I see sometimes around me, things, but the real messages and the voices and the, let's say, information comes during dream time for me. And it's these dreams, when the spirit comes in, differentiate from a normal subconscious dream a lot. These are very different dreams. And the more you, or let's say in this case me, am able to stay in the feeling of okay, they're here, there's nothing to be scared of, I can be with these sensations, feelings, the more easier it seems it is for them to communicate whatever it is they need to communicate to you. As well as the second part, when you are able to sit in that dream time, even it's even able, or it's even possible to ask questions from these entities or our ancestors. But the important part is to stay in those feelings and not get too scared, because if you get too scared, you kind of, in my experience, you kind of blow them away, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that's part of that shame and fear. And that when something is unknown and you run from it, your mind shuts down, puts up walls, closes doors, and you just go into denial and you try to find any way. And it's like, I always get really curious. I'm curious about many, many things, and I have been all my life. And like I say, it brought experiences and things into my whole world. And through my granddad and that, and prayers and things that I had done, it opened many, many different doors. And at times I got very scared where an angelic beings showed up and they're channeling and giving me messages and telling me all kinds of stuff. And I'm sitting there and this energy is just so overpowering. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know, just scared, like, be careful of your thoughts and that. Like, these are beings from way out there. And I'm sitting and I'm staring and I'm going, yeah, and, you know, and I'm just, eyeballs are bugging out. And I'm like, okay, why are they here? Why did they just sort of appear? I didn't call them. I didn't pray. Now they're just here doing this. And the experience goes on. And then at one time where they were leaving and they said, we will be back. And it was like, I thought they were threatening me the way they and I went through this experience and I'm just like, just all wired and scared because they just popped out of nowhere and they were doing this. And then they're like, we will be back. So for a whole month, I went around just terrified that somehow I was going to die, or I had broken a law, or I thought something really bad that they were going to come back and do something. And for a month, I just went around. Every time I heard the noise, I just jumped because I'm like, you know, they're going to come out of somewhere and get me. And after that month, I sat down and I'm like, I'm being silly. There's something I'm not getting here. So I went back and I started thinking about the things we were saying, they were saying, and other things. And I'm like, all this stuff was going on. And then they said, like, we will be back later and you will understand it all. So my brain erased part of it. And I just went into this, you know, and went into all these things of, you know, something bad or evil was going to happen. So the mind is quite amazing how it will spontaneously so fast do this. And like I say, they do these things in their own time. And if you're asking for experiences, they will bring them. And a lot of people don't understand that concept. When you ask the universe for something, somewhere something is going to happen. So if you're sitting around with a group of people and they're like, well, let's have a seance, or let's take out the Ouija board and we'll just play around and do this, nothing happens. And then you're going along and a year later, bam, something blows wide open. Well, you ask the universe something. Now here's an experience. How do you deal with it? And that's where there are things that go on. But the universe is always trying to bring love, happiness, joy, and trying to open us up to understand the universe is really beautiful, but the world has trained us to only look for the negative. So if you go into Buddhism, look for all the good things. If you go into native spirituality, look for all the good things. If you go into Egyptian beliefs, any kind of culture, wherever it is, look for those good things, because you're going to start seeing them all connect. As you're doing that, you're going to start attracting all the good things. But if you're only searching for the negative, you're going to attract that because it's going to teach you something, because that's where your focus is.
Yeah, looking for answers.
So through my years of reading and studying and sitting with different medicine people and going to different Buddhist temples and practicing all kinds of stuff, I realized you have to really focus on those good things, because they will come in and they will magically change your life and do many wonderful things.
One thing we often suggest to people in some of the sessions that we do with really gifted people where they don't understand their abilities, or the spirit world, you could say, is to watch that TV series, The Dead Files. The way that they do it is not antagonizing those mischievous spirits or that unknown. They go in there and they investigate it, and then they have a solution at the end. And when you can watch what she's able to walk through and still stay true to herself and not fear these things that other people can't see, if she can do it, so can you. So can another person. It's like finding knowledge and getting past the fear that you have and finding answers to your situation that you might be in.
And that other one, Psychic Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we like getting younger children to look at that because they watch other people and how they learn how to use their gifts. So instead of being afraid, because there's a little boy and he would see images in the mirror and things would move by and would scare him, and he didn't know how to deal with it. Neither did his parents. And they came across the psychic kid. So these people came in and they actually taught him how to deal with it and stop and not be afraid. But they also opened up his gifts so he could see things, and they took him to some buildings and other things and had him tell them things that they already knew to verify, and they taught him how to use this. So he stopped being afraid, and it helped his parents, and it changed a whole bunch of things in their lives. So I like getting people to go to YouTube and different things and watch something, because sometimes that alone will teach you or help you in a way.
So guys, no need to be afraid. Just, feel your feelings, get help. If it's too much to handle on your own at first, reach out to Cindy and Joe. I will link their website in the description below. And, have a fun, interesting experience connecting to these other realms of existence and to other spirits that still, I think, mostly are here for us to communicate with and help us and guide us, and they aren't all bad, or at least most of this, at least most of them.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.